I'm kind of happy to be home. So I have a few updates that I want to share, and then we'll dive back into acquisitions. Oh, your power keeps going out. I'm sorry. Our wind is really bad here, so our Wi-Fi has been spotty, but I understand. But a few things I want to update on you. I see the conversation about invoices that's happening in Basecamp. So just quickly to address that, your invoices are something that's going to run on the same schedule as your WMS subscription, it seems like. So especially what Catherine posted about the July to June. There's nothing you need to do. This will all work itself out because the timing is going to be the same. So don't worry if it's due before the July subscription for WMS that we're going to start then you will need to pay it and they'll make an adjustment and get it all on the same subscription. But if your subscription run's going to run on the same period for the updates for Discovery and First Search that will for WMS once we get that going in July, then there's nothing for you to worry about at this time. I know the language coming from orders is confusing. The other thing I want to share with you is that starting today, I'm going to be doing what we call a KB reset for everybody. So this is part of the data migration process. Now that we have transferred everyone's data, I need to reset your knowledge base holdings to a date that's later than that of your bib and item delivery. So to do this, I'm going to go into the collection manager and into the institution settings and switch your holdings to no for the next few days. And then I'll go back in and set it to yes. So what that means is during this time that the titles in your knowledge base will appear in WorldCat as not being held by your library. This isn't going to affect full text links or functionality. So it will still retrieve metadata for your KB collections. It's just going to scope to libraries worldwide. So you'd still see that. So I don't want anyone to freak out and think your holdings for the knowledge base have disappeared. I will then go back in later this week and reset it to yes, and then they'll start to appear again after about 24 hours. So next week, everything will be back to normal and that will be in place.
Will that affect any live interlibrary loans that we have out?
No, it will not impact anything going on. It's just gonna indicate that you don't have those holdings. So if you so this is just related to those electronic resources and the knowledge bases that you turn on. It'll just reflect that you don't own it, but once I switch it back over, it will go back to normal. And then the last thing kind of to update folks on, about half of you are able to begin cataloging new items in WMS. I will be posting that in Basecamp as well. So I believe that includes Northwood, Northeast, Western, Waukesha, North Central, and Moraine Park. Everyone else you'll have it'll stagger in the next week or two, and you'll be able to begin cataloging as well. So you'll be able to add new items only, which is very timely as we talk about serials today, because I did see a few questions about that in Basecamp. Bear with me as I work through getting caught up on things that happened last week. There wasn't that much, and I think I've gotten to most of it. But I'm going to be in and out as I deal with this increasingly worse feeling that I'm having in my head and throat area. So 1 second and we'll switch over to acquisitions and start talking about serials. Now, I don't want you to freak out and worry that you have to memorize all this now. We will do a refresher during office hours later in June as you get closer to go live, because serials management can be a tricky thing for those of you that do manage those serials. So give me 1 second and we'll switch over. I'm already logged into the Muncie Library test environment. So we'll be able to revisit some orders that we created last week, talking about the receiving and invoicing process for cereals. So one of the things to note is if you want to track the purchases for your cereals and use the cereals management tool, you can do both of those, or you can do one or the other in acquisitions. It's pretty flexible, so you can kind of manage that how you need to. So if you don't want to use acquisitions to track your budget and to order items, you can still use the cereals management. So we're going to break this into a couple pieces as we look at it. We're going to revisit an order that we created 2 weeks ago so that we can see that process. So we had an order that I created where we ordered a mixture of items. So we had some print books and some local resource items, as well as a cereal. So we're purchasing Guitar World essentially for the first time. It might be something that you have received ongoing for a period of years, but you want to get it and track it in as part of a subscription so that you can keep it tracked on your budget and get it added into the system. So I can add it to any order, and you can do that around the time that it needs to be renewed so that it's added into acquisitions. So I've purchased it, I've added it to this order because I'm ordering it through the same vendor. We'll be able to see that listed here. And I've already placed this order. We saw this last week. We received some of these items, but not all of them. So for example, if I take a look at this print book, Dylan Goes Electric, we have received and invoiced it. I'm on the invoice tab. It tells me exactly which one it's attached to. Then we can continue to receive against this. So if I go back to the order, I'll be able to see that I didn't receive Guitar World yet. If I click on the title, it will take me in, and I can see on the invoice, I haven't invoiced it. It hasn't been renewed yet. It's ordered but not received. I can track all of that information. I'll also be able to track subscriptions through the subscription item section so that I can add renewals. Once I've ordered it for the first time, I can add it to a new order in the future. So now I'm ordering Guitar World here for April. Let's say I'm going to start receiving it in May. Then next year at this time, I can go in, search for that item, and add it to an order to renew that particular title. But let's receive it, because the receiving portion and invoicing are very similar to what we saw with print monographs. But it doesn't actually create the LHR for you. So that's a little bit different than what we dealt with the print books and DVDs that we ordered before. So I'm going to come back in, and I do need to receive this, and I'm going to use the same invoice that I used for my other items. So I want to just pull that invoice real quick so that I'm putting everything on the same invoice. I'm just going to pull that invoice number, and now I can go back into receiving. Really, what's helpful here is it will allow us to be able to put things on the same invoice from an order or from a vendor. So we're going to, this was with Miles of Books, and I'm going to view items, but I want to make sure I change the processing type to cereal because I'm receiving items from that particular vendor that I've ordered that I have not yet received. Here I can scroll through. It's pulling through everything that's been ordered but received, and I'm looking for the items that I haven't received yet. So let's change this to not received. Now, for some reason, my screen's doing something weird, but my drop down appeared over somewhere else, but it would show the different receipt statuses. So let's see if I move it over. No, it's still doing it weird and showing it on another screen. So here you can see I have ordered Guitar World. I've pulled it up. It's going to go on the Music Special Collections location, and I have not yet received it. So I want to be able to receive and invoice this particular item, and I'm going to do it against the existing invoice that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and start receiving it. Now, because I've changed the receipt status here to not received, and I've started the receiving process, it dropped it down below here and I don't see it above. So I just want to change this to partially received, and I'll be able to finish the receiving. And then I'll need to be able to invoice this item, this particular title. So once I add it to my invoice, I'll be able to do that as well. Yes, you can. Catherine asked that they get very few serials and individually catalog them. You can use this process if you want to track them if they arrive as scheduled. Yes, you don't necessarily have to receive, and invoice the serials in order to track them if they arrive as scheduled. We'll see that on another screen in the serials management tool. This is just if you want to order and track them on your budget, you would be able to do that. Now, what's different about this process is when I receive it, I don't put in a call number, I don't put in a barcode, I'm not putting any information in. This is just ordering, receiving, invoicing process. This does nothing to create the LHR, which is very different from what we saw last week or 2 weeks ago when we were ordering monographs, because it was taking the information from the order and the receiving stage and building the LHR. And that's not the case here. So what's really important to note is I have to go in and create a holding for this in order to begin receiving those individual issues and track them. So ordering and invoicing is completely separate from the serials check-in that you might be used to in Sierra. So this is really just tracking it for the budget purposes. Now, if I go in and search for Guitar World, or probably easier if I search for the OCLC number. You'll see I haven't set any holdings. I don't have any LHRs, which is very different than when we searched for those items such as Dylan Goes Electric. Because you'll see that it created that LHR during the ordering and receiving stage, and it put that information in. So very different process for anything that is a serial. Now for our serials, we have to do the work to create the holding, the copy to begin receiving against. When I click on the title and acquisitions, it takes me directly to the issues management tab. Now, I can skip the ordering, invoicing, receiving, or ordering, receiving, invoicing process if I just want to track and add those issues. It's completely up to you how you want to deal with this. It can be done in tandem or they can be done separately. But I don't have any holdings or copies to begin receiving with this particular title. So I need to go into the copies screen like we saw when we talked about basic cataloging several weeks ago, and I need to add a copy. Now for our monographs that we were adding an item. Here we're adding a copy to begin receiving our issues against. So I'm going to select add copy, make sure that my audience level is correct, who I want to see this item. Mine is set up for my users in Discovery and on the staff side. I'll select the appropriate branch and the shelving location. We'll just put this in special collections. Now, because I have filled out the information in the settings area under administration, it's going to populate my call number preference, and I need to select that schema option. Now, if you do not use Library of Congress or Dewey for your serials, that's absolutely fine. You can change this if you use it, do it alphabetically, or you have some homegrown option, you can do that. Copy number will automatically go in. If this is my first copy of this, it will default to 1. If it's my second, it will default to 2. Now, receipt status becomes more important with your serials than what we saw this with your monographs. In order to help us track some of this, it will allow us to set this either to currently received or not currently received. This will make more sense in a different example later when we talk about migrated serials. But I'm going to currently receive this, so I'm going to set it to currently received and add any public or staff notes necessary. Now you'll notice there isn't a space for me to put in information about volume or issue number because this is just the copy we're going to receive against. This is the high-level location LHR information. The individual issue information will then be attached to the holding that will attach to the copy. And I'm going to add that copy. It saves successfully. I can click on the title and it will show me that copy level. Now I don't have any holdings because I haven't received any issues yet. But if I'm going to receive a second copy of this and it's going to go to another location, I would then need to add another copy and select the appropriate shelving location. Same process. Now I'll have 2 copies then to receive against so that they go to the appropriate location. Now I can manage these through my issues management tool. So here I can access issues. I can access this in circulation as well. So keep that in mind. You don't have to work in acquisitions to manage your issues. So if you have circ staff that will be doing this work, they'll be able to do it through the issues tab. Now, when I go into the issues tab, it's going to show me that it's going to default to the receive issues tab. And it's going to show me that I have not started receiving it. Pardon me for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. If no one has been receiving this, you would see no information about enumeration or chronology. You would have to begin this process from scratch. However, what's really great about the issues management tool is that it allows shared data across other WMS users. So there are other WMS libraries that are receiving Guitar World, and they are able to kind of share the prediction and then the patterns of this. So we'll be able to see that somebody recently received all of these July issues, and it goes back to September of 2017. If for some reason you have older issues that you've got in your collection that you also want to represent, you'll be able to add back issues as well. Now, in order to begin using the issues management, I have to select Start Receiving. When I select Start Receiving, I get this pop-up that's going to ask me how many copies I'm expected to receive. Now, I'm expecting to receive 2 copies, one for the music library and one for the Muncie library. So I'm going to adjust this. It's then going to ask me where I want to start with my issues. Now, this is important as you think about your migrated data. And I know I saw somebody mention in Basecamp that you'll probably have a pileup of issues that you've been receiving that have been migrated. You will not be able to check those in until data migration completes for anything you've migrated. If for some magical reason you have purchased a brand new subscription since migration started, you could add it. But what's important to note is that with data migration, you can only start this process post-migration completion. So if I have migrated up through volume 40, number 10, and then I'm going to start picking this up with volume 46, number 1. There's a gap between when folks were adding this information. I would start here so that I can receive everything going forward. So we'll select volume 46, number 1. Everything else is migrating, and I'm going to click Save. Now you'll notice that there is an update here. So if I'm migrating everything that is older than January 2025, you'll see that it's 0 of 0. Now that doesn't mean I can't go back and receive any of those back issues. If maybe you get a donation and you want to track that, you can go back and add those. It's just indicating that I'm expecting to start receiving here in the system, starting with the January 2025 issue. Now, there are a lot missing. There's a big gap here. It seems like we had some WMS libraries receiving this up until 2019, and then there may have been a bit of a fall off during COVID, depending upon how this magazine was coming out. If I want to add those missing issues, I can come to the Manage Issues tab and come in and click Add Issue, and add any of those that are missing between that October 2019 and December of 2024 range. I just make the adjustments. This is a basic issue type. So if for some reason there's an index or a supplement that gets added to a subscription, you can add those in as well. So if there is a supplement or maybe some sort of like end of year index that's been sent out, you can come in and add those as well, set the appropriate enumeration level and information provided. Now here for this, for Guitar World, the enumeration level is set to 2, so we just have volume and number, but we can add up to 4 if necessary. You'll see the options listed below, some in a variety of different languages because WMS is a global product, so we'll see those listed here. So you'll just need to look for, the appropriate volume, issue information, number, and so forth. And we'll enter in that correct enumeration. And you'll hit Save. Now, if for some reason Guitar World goes to quarterly, the first library to identify that can come in here and update the publication pattern. So once the first issue has been added and we've begun receiving it, it will predict the publication pattern and add each new issue that is expected. As happens, publications change their patterns, so we can edit that information and make adjustments. Just like we see where anywhere else we are adjusting globally shared data, we do have a kind of a reminder at the top. You have to acknowledge that this is shared, so if you make a change, it will impact other libraries. So you can come and make the adjustment to the publication frequency. And this is true for subject headings that change on a rotating basis. So those things can be updated and shared globally. Please don't feel fearful or like somebody else is in charge of that. Whoever gets to it first updates it for everyone else. Because these changes do happen as publications change or as different nuances with our subject headings change. Now I can make that adjustment, click Save, and move forward. If for some reason you receive a serial that no other WMS library is receiving, you would need to first start, you wouldn't be able to start receiving it. You would need to first start and manage issues and add the first issue in order to begin the process. So you would add the first issue you're going to receive, set the publication pattern, and then you'll be able to start receiving it. Once I'm ready, I can come in here, click the Receive button, and I'll see the 2 that I'm currently receiving. Barcodes are not required for serials. We just have to make sure that we have the shelving locations appropriately set up in Discovery in order to make sure that they show as available as needed. But if I enter in my barcode and I click in the Receive button, I'll be able to add that. So before I do that, I just want to remind you what it looks like. Back on the copy screen, I've added the copies to receive against. No holdings yet because I haven't received anything. Now I can come into the Issues tab and begin receiving. Enter a barcode if I have one. Click Receive, and I can do that for both copies if I receive them both at the same time. And click Save. Now you'll see it has updated the copies. I've received 2 of 2, which was what was expected. And it will tell me when I last received them. As the first libraries then receive the next issue, as we continue to go through this process, it will then predict the next one. So once the June one has been received or the July one has been received, it will predict the next one for August, and it will update that information. So we can see some WMS library has received the June issue as of yesterday. They were the first library to receive it. And I can continue this process. So let's receive just a couple more so that we can see what it looks like on the next screen. As I continue to receive these titles, it will update the information that we see on the copy screen and in Discovery. Now, if I switch over to the copy screen and I click on the holdings, we'll see that that will populate down below. Same with my other collection. So again, as a reminder, we have a copy that we receive against, and those different holdings are attached to the copy. So if for some reason I need to withdraw volume 46 number 2, I'm not doing it up here in the copy screen, I'm doing it at the holdings level. So I would come in to view edit, and I can delete this individual issue, because here is where I will then see all of the enumeration information. It's very easy to use. And if I go into Discovery and I search for Guitar World, I'll see that it's showing as available. I have 6 copies or 6 holdings available at 2 locations. So I have 6 volumes, but we do know that there are multiples. So I can click this and go straight to the availability information, and it will show me those listed. It's going to do most recent to oldest, so newest to oldest, but I can use the arrows to reorder those and take a look at oldest to newest. Now mine is showing not available because it's in processing, but we'll see here the music collection goes straight to available, and it shows that appropriately. Now here's a good opportunity to remind you what the status in Discovery is showing. There are 2 statuses that are showing here. We have a Discovery related status for configuration and a circulation status. So the symbol, the green check mark, or in other cases, you would see the Ghostbusters symbol. That's the Discovery status set in the OPAC status grid, which we haven't really done much yet. We were waiting for shelving locations. The status of the word, not available or checked out or on order, is a circulation status. So that's pulling from the WMS side. We just need to make sure that these match appropriately on the status grid. Clearly mine do not. So there's something in the grid that I have wonky that is showing a green check mark for not available instead of a Ghostbusters symbol. So I would need to make an adjustment there. And if that happens to you, which tends to with serials, we can make that adjustment pretty easily. So just a reminder of what those statuses are showing. With the issues management, for anything that you begin receiving using the issues management tool, you'll be able to use the binding feature as well. Any migrated serial data will not be available to use with this issues binding. This will start going forward with anything you receive new. With that said, for anything you migrate, and I will remind you of this in June when we revisit this topic, for any serial you migrate, you will need to add a new copy. And that's what's really important, because as data migrates, especially serial data, it doesn't always migrate over the way that we hope or expect. It may display correctly and look right in Discovery, but there could be issues on the backside with cataloging that will conflict and cause issues. Another problem too with serials is as we begin to receive them and we receive too many, it will become very difficult to manage on the MARC record. So we want to make sure that we are adding new copies periodically to receive against. So here's a new example, completely separate from the ordering process. If I search for travel and leisure, you'll see that I have 2 holdings already. I can go ahead and take a look at those. It's going to take me into the tab. I'm not receiving them. They migrated over. I can go into copies and see that I migrated 5 to the Muncie Library and 5 to the Kemp Library. And I can see those listed here. Now, I set this up this morning, so bear with me. It's not going to exactly look like how your migrated data will look. So this is just to simulate what we're looking for. My recommendation for best use is to create a brand new copy. Leave these exactly the way that they are for what migrated and add a new copy to receive against. What we'll also want to do is go into these already migrated copies and adjust the receiving information. So if I click on the view edit, I want to come in and edit this and change the receipt status to not currently received. This is going to allow me to edit out when I go to the receiving stage and not add it to a migrated copy or an old copy. Because I tend to recommend that once you've received 100 holdings against a copy, start a new one. That way they're not too bogged down. This happens more with like law libraries, especially because they'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of holdings, and they're not purging any of that. They're retaining it for research purposes. But if you have serials that have like 300 holdings, which no one had that as the case, I don't believe. I think those got cleaned up a lot, or they weren't migrated at all. You would want to set this to not currently received so we can start a brand new one in WMS to receive against. Kim, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so for our workflow, we do delete, every year we go and we delete a certain year, a back year.
Yeah.
And throw those out. Would it make sense for us to do a new copy per year? Would that make it easy for us to delete an entire year?
Yes, ma'am, it would. It absolutely would. So yes, because that's another thing too that we often will recommend is as you start the new calendar year, then start a new copy, because it makes it so much easier to go back and completely delete out the entire holding. Because if I do it from here on this screen, this is the copy level, and I hit delete, it will delete all the issues attached to that individual holding, or copy rather. So yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So I want to set this to not currently received. I'm not getting rid of these. I still want them to show up. And I want to do the same for my other one because I'm going to add a new copy. So I can edit this, change the receipt status to not currently received, and save it. I'm actually not going to change this one just because I want to show you what it looks like. So now I can come in and add a new copy. I want my Muncie Library. This is going to go to the periodicals location, just like before. But I'm going to set this to currently received and add my copy. So now you'll see I have the Muncie Library one with my migrated data and the Muncie Library one with my new location or my new copy to receive against. All that data is still here. I just am adding a new copy to receive against just to make the process easier and cleaner. And then I can do that for my Kemp library. Now we left the other one set as currently received as well. And I did that because I want to show you the importance of adjusting the receipt status. So I can add this copy. Now that I've added the appropriate copies to begin receiving against for my migrated serials, I can go into the Issues tab, start receiving, manage issues as needed, and I can do that however I need to. Let me check where I want to start this from. We'll go back to 54 number 1. And save. Oops, I wanted to do 2. Okay. So again, this 0 of 0 does not preclude me from receiving against them. I'm just indicating in the system that I'm starting from here. I can go back and receive back issues if you find one, if it's donated, however you want to manage that. Now, when I come in here and I click receive, I'm now going to see a lot of locations. And I don't know which one is which. Which one am I currently receiving against? Which one am I not receiving against? Because I see both my Muncie Library ones and both my Kemp Library ones, both the migrated locations and the ones that I'm going to begin receiving against. But because we set the receiving status, what's going to help us here is I can click this show only currently received copies, and it's going to eliminate that other one. So now I'm like, oh, well, I have to go in and adjust the Kemp Library one so I know exactly which one I'm going to receive against. So I'm going to cancel out of here, go back to my copy screen, go into the Kemp Library one and edit that receipt status, because that's going to help me be able to receive against the correct copy. Now I can go back into issues, begin receiving, show only currently received copies, and then I know exactly which ones I'm receiving against. Super, super helpful feature. So keep that in mind. If you are overwhelmed with the options and you have too many choices, just make sure the receipt status is correct. And now I can come in here and put in my barcode and receive these new issues. And it will update the information. Now there's some additional functionality that's needed to do setup for the binding process. We're not going to go over that. So if you do, not a lot of libraries are doing binding anymore, but if you do, we have great documentation that can walk you through it, but it's very easy to use. But you can only use it for items that you have checked out here. Yeah, Catherine, I see you have a question in chat.
Yeah, like Kim, we throw out our issues after a certain amount of time, usually after the 3rd year. So we've stopped barcoding, but it would be nice for us to know that it was received. Do you have to barcode new issues in the holdings records?
No, you do not. Nope. I can receive these. Just click the received box and hit save. and it will add those new issues. So you do not have to barcode your serials. You can still track them and use the issues management. So if you decide you are absolutely not going to use the ordering, receiving invoice process, you can still use this issues management tool, which I think is very, very helpful for getting those issues added to the collection quickly and easily, and keeping track of them. Now, you'll notice here, I have the ability to receive an item on this screen. This does not use that issues management. If I were to click receive item, I need to populate the enumeration and chronology information. So I recommend you do one or the other. Either do it this way or do it on the previous screen that we saw. I recommend that you use the issues management as opposed to receiving here, but it's up to you. And you'll be able to add those. Because if I do both, I try to do a mix, it's not going to show up on the issues management if I receive the item here. And again, I can delete individual copies, come in and delete an individual issue. I can come in and I can delete an entire series of issues. So this again was helpful as you purge a whole year's worth. It makes that easier. You can come in and delete the entire copy. Now, for any titles, as I mentioned before, I don't know I know that there were some unique titles that came up earlier in this process, and you may have some specific Wisconsin-related trade publications or serials that you receive that are specific to your institutions or to your region. When you look for those and they're not set up in the issues management, that doesn't mean that you can't utilize them or set them up. So for example, if we take a look at, I'm going to probably pull some like really weird see if we can find one. Okay, here's one. Oh, no, never mind. That one's being received. That did not help my, maybe this one. Excellent. Here's a great example. Okay, so Kansas Magazine, I know it says that I have 36 of them. Please ignore that. But if I go in, you can see that no WMS library has begun receiving this particular periodical. And we see this a lot, again, with specific regional type publications or very trade specific publications. I worked with the Department of Labor many years ago, and they received mining publications that were not being received by any other WMS library. So that doesn't mean we can't manage those here. We can very easily. So I can't start receiving it because nothing has been set up. So I need to start with manage issues. I need to add an issue, select the type, the enumeration level, and add that information. Once I've added that issue, and I'm not going to do that because this is live data, it will then allow me to set the publication pattern and start receiving. So please don't be afraid of this. If there is something that you receive that no one else does and you still want to track it, please do. That will make this process so much easier. Now, one important thing to note is depending upon how your data migrates over, it may not appear as we saw with the travel and leisure example. This is a good example because somebody added this data into the system and it didn't add it in correctly, or it didn't add it correctly. So you'll see I have lots of different entries. I have 36 different entries of copies. So receiving these is going to be very difficult because it entered each publication as its own copy, as opposed to had one copy to receive against and then the holdings listed down below. So when you see, if this happens with your data migration, there will be some cleanup that needs to happen in order to make this work appropriately. Now, it's going to show up fine in Discovery. So if we go look for Kansas Magazine in Discovery, not going to hurt the display. Discovery is smart enough to be able to adjust that information. But if there's inconsistency in cataloging and how this information is entered, it's going to be wonky. It will not have it in order if the cataloging has been inconsistent. So that might be a point of cleanup post-migration. Periodicals are always the messiest part of data migration. So for those of you migrating it, that will be one thing you'll want to check as we start to finish up data migration. Okay. So again, just a reminder, whether you are ordering one for the first time or you are going to utilize your migrated data to receive those issues, you will first need to add a copy to receive against. In acquisitions, I click on the title, it's going to take me directly to the issues tab. If I search for it in circulation, it's going to take me directly to the copies tab. It's just a matter of default for where it's going to land. But I need to add that copy to receive against, and then I can go into the issues management and begin the receiving process. One really nice thing that I also like about the issues management is that if for some reason I need to unreceive, I can come in and click unreceive and delete out one of those copies. So it will completely remove it from the system. So if I want to remove it, I can deselect it and it will delete it out. And I can use this issues management section to add or remove different titles, or I can go in and delete them on the copy screen as we saw before. So it can all be managed here or not. Yeah, Kim.
Okay, so I'm planning out my workflow and just want to make sure I have this right. So while we're waiting for everything to be migrated, do you want us to go ahead and make a copy? Or wait until you give us the go-ahead for that after everything has migrated?
I would wait until data migration is completed.
Got it.
Anything related to serials that have migrated.
And then after migration, you're saying the best plan would be make a copy for the earliest year and receive all of those issues for that year. Mark, change that one to be not receiving, make a new copy for the next year and receive all those in. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's your workflow, I think that's the best way to deal with it because it makes it so much easier to remove and to track what's been added. It also makes the LHRs manageable. So if you do not delete them on a yearly basis, it still makes the issues much more manageable ongoing. So you'll be able to go in and review them and delete and edit as needed. You cannot combine copies, so that's important to keep in mind. There's no merging of copies to take a series of issues from one copy and add it to another. They're just going to live independently. So especially with migrated data that can come out kind of wonky, it makes it easier for you to do ongoing cleanup if they're separated. But I think that's a great way to establish your workflow. I know the last library I ran, we did that. We purged. We only kept so much. When I first started there, I think they had 10 years worth of People magazine, and that's a lot of People magazine. So that was a big pile that went to the recycling.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so again, please feel free to come in here and practice this process. I do ask that you do not begin receiving or set up or manage any issues for serials that are not already currently being managed or received against. Just because, again, this is live data and I don't want you to practice with stuff that isn't there. If it's going to be a title that you will be receiving, check with me, but that shouldn't be a problem. But again, if you're just playing with it, don't add anything that isn't going to be something you're going to use, because again, this is live data and can impact what libraries are seeing and what they're requesting. I get all kinds of interlibrary loan requests. I try to block it, but life happens, right? All right, folks, there will be some Basecamp updates. I will probably be taking some time off this afternoon to take a nap as I continue to battle through this cold. I'm at the very beginning part. My husband's at the end. He spent the last full day that we were in Mexico in bed. So hopefully I don't get it as bad as he did, but not hopeful. So please bear with me. I think I got through most of the questions, and I'll be working with Melody and answering any questions she has for patron data. But thank you all so much. Bib data is in process. I think there might be one of you that I need to pop back with about some changes to your translation table, but I think for the most part, everything is going well. And when I say this, I mean it. No news from the data team is good news. So if I don't have updates for you on data, that's a good thing. There's no problems. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm holding a hope, but every time I've gotten COVID, it's really hit me hard for some reason. So I'm battling, but thank you. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you again on Thursday. Office hours this week. I don't know if we need to revisit what we just went over today. We'll probably talk about the new circulation notices, the change since we talked about circulation notices in February. So that will probably be what we talk about on Thursday. If I'm upright. If I'm not, then I'll cancel and we'll just meet again next week. So.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Beth.
Thank you. I'll see you guys soon.